Imagine a girl clad in a vibrant red cloak, venturing alone into the shadowy depths of an ancient forest. The trees tower above her like silent sentinels, their branches forming a canopy that filters the sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. A wolf watches from the shadows, his eyes gleaming with cunning intelligence. We know this tale by heart, Little Red Riding Hood. But have you ever wondered why the cloak is red? Why the antagonist is a wolf and not some other predator? Why the forest serves as a setting for countless fairy tales across cultures and centuries? Welcome to the hidden world beneath the surface of the most beloved stories. These tales that have enchanted generation after generation, they aren't merely entertaining narratives passed down through time. They're intricate tapestries woven with symbols that speak to our deepest fears and the universal human experience. Consider this. Fairy tales have survived centuries of cultural evolution, technological revolution, and societal transformation. The fact that a child today can be captivated by the same story that mesmerized children generations ago suggests that the narratives contain something timeless, something that maybe resonates with our human psyche, regardless of the era or our circumstances. What gives these seemingly simple stories their enduring power? The answer lies in the symbols embedded within them. Symbols that whisper to our subconscious and teach us about the world in ways that transcend rational understanding. Animals in fairy tales are rarely just animals. They are embodiments of human traits, personifications of natural forces, or maybe representations of societal roles. The secret language that children intuitively understand and adults often forget. Take, for example, the cunning fox, a character that appears in numerous cultural traditions. In Aesop's Fables, which have inspired countless later fairy tales, the fox represents clever wit, sometimes used trickery, sometimes for survival. In The Fox and the Crow, the fox flatters the crow until the bird opens its mouth to sing, dropping the coveted cheese directly into the fox's waiting jaws. Well, this isn't merely a tale about animals, it's a warning about the dangers of vanity and the power of manipulation. The wolf, by contrast, embodies a more primal kind of danger. In Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf represents not just physical threat, but the dangers of naivety, of trusting too easily. The story's warning about talking to strangers takes physical form in this who can speak with human cunning. While wolves are indeed predators in the natural world, in fairy tales they become symbols of all that lurks in the shadows of our civilized existence. But not all animal symbolism is so dark. For example, consider the steadfast tortoise from The Tortoise and the Hare. The tortoise represents a value of persistence, of steady progress over flashy speed. When the tortoise wins the race against the overconfident hare, children learn not just about a race between animals, but the virtue of patience and determination. In a lesser known tale you may not have encountered yet, The Nightingale, by Hans Christian Andersen, the humble brown bird represents authentic art and natural beauty, contrasted with the bejeweled mechanical bird that ultimately breaks down. The nightingale's song brings tears to the emperor's eyes, and eventually it even saves his life. It's a powerful symbol of how genuine expression surpasses artificial imitation. This artificial imitation may actually be relevant in today's world, where AI changes everything. But even more fascinating is how these animal symbols transcend cultural boundaries. From Anansi, the spider in the West African tales, to the dragons of East Asian mythology, to the Native American coyote tales. Certainly animals consistently represent specific traits across vastly different countries and cultures. This suggests something archetypal about these associations, as if humans across time and space independently recognize similar patterns in the natural world around them. If animals in fairy tales represent traits and archetypes, objects often symbolize more abstract concepts: temptation, transformation, revelation, or power. Consider the simple apple, a fruit that appears repeatedly throughout folklore worldwide. In Snow White, the poisoned apple represents temptation and hidden danger beneath the beautiful appearance. But the apple's symbolism extends far beyond this single tale. In countless mythologies, apple represents knowledge, immortality, or forbidden desire. The apple in fairy tales connects to the apple in Eden, to the golden apples of immortality in Greek mythology, forming an unbroken symbolic chain across human storytelling. Mirrors also hold powerful symbolic significance. When the evil queen in Snow White asks, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest?" she's not merely speaking to a reflective surface. She's confronting her own insecurities, her fear of aging and loss of beauty. Mirrors in fairy tales often represent truth, self-knowledge, and sometimes painful self-reflection. They show us not just our physical appearance, but our true nature, a function that explains their prevalence in stories about vanity and self-discovery. Even seemingly mundane objects become charged with meaning. Cinderella's glass slipper isn't just footwear, it's a symbol of transformation, of a perfect fit, of a uniqueness that cannot be falsified. When the slipper fits only Cinderella, the story tells us something profound about authentic identity versus pretense. In a tale, you may be less familiar with a story, The Red Shoes, by, again, Hans Christian Andersen. The enchanted red shoes that force their wearer to dance unceasingly represent vanity, temptation, and punishment for excessive pride. The shoe's color itself carries symbolic weight, red often representing both passion and danger, desire and punishment. Or consider the spindle in Sleeping Beauty. Why a spindle specifically? In many cultures, spinning and weaving are associated with the fate itself. The Greek fates spun, measured, and cut the thread of life. When the princess pricks her fingers on the spindle, she is symbolically encountering her predestined fate. A moment when the cosmic order asserts itself despite all human attempts to prevent it. These objects become anchors for complex ideas, allowing children to grasp abstract concepts through tangible symbols. A child might not fully understand the philosophical concept of authentic identity, but they immediately grasp the significance of a shoe that fits only one person in the entire kingdom. Have you ever noticed how certain numbers appear with mysterious frequency in fairy tales? This is not coincidence. The numbers in these ancient stories carry symbolic weight, creating patterns that speak to our pattern-seeking mind. The number 3, for example, reigns supreme in the fairy tale tradition. 3 little pigs build 3 houses. Goldilocks encounters 3 bears, 3 bowls, and 3 chairs, and 3 beds. In countless tales across cultures, protagonists face 3 challenges, meet 3 magical beings, or make 3 wishes. Why 3? Perhaps it's because it's the simplest form of a pattern. The beginning, middle, and the end. Past, present, future. Birth, life, death. 3 creates a sense of completion. It's the strongest form. It's easily memorable. It's no accident that the classic storytelling structure itself follows a 3-act format. 7 appears with almost equal frequency. Snow White's 7 dwarfs. The 7 kids in The Wolf and the 7 young goats. The 7 brothers or sisters in countless folktales. 7 combines mathematical significance, being a prime number, with astronomical significance, the 7 visible planets in the ancient astronomy. The phases of the moon occurring roughly every 7 days. Across cultures, 7 often represents completeness or perfection. 12, meanwhile, connects to the natural cycles that governed pre-industrial life. 12 months, 12 signs of the zodiac, 12 hours of the day, and 12 hours of the night in many timekeeping systems. When the 12 dancing princesses wear out their shoes night after night, the 12 princesses represent completeness within a natural cycle. In a tale that might be unfamiliar to many modern readers, The 7 Ravens by the Brothers Grimm, a father's curse transforms his 7 sons into ravens. Their sister's quest to save them becomes a journey through cosmic forces represented by the sun, moon, and the stars. The number 7 here connects to both celestial bodies and the days of the week. It was an ancient way of organizing time that remains embedded in our modern calendar. These numerical patterns create a mathematical undercurrent to fairy tales, an invisible structure that satisfies our innate desires for pattern and meaning. They divide chaos into comprehensible units, much as fairy tales themselves transform chaos of human experience into structured narratives. When we begin to recognize these layers of symbolism, fairy tales transform before our eyes. What once seemed like simple stories for children reveal themselves as sophisticated vehicles for cultural wisdom, psychological insight, and moral instruction. The forest in fairy tales, that dark, mysterious place where Hansel and Gretel get lost, where Red Riding Hood meets the wolf, where countless heroes and heroines face their greatest challenges, it represents unknown territories of life, the wilderness, beyond the safety of the familiar. When characters enter into the forest, they enter a realm of the unknown, of testing, of transformation. They emerge changed, if they emerge at all. Similarly, the journey itself, undertaken by nearly every fairy tale protagonist, from Jack climbing the beanstalk to the brave tin soldier floating down the gutter, symbolizes universal human experience of growth through change. These symbolic journeys prepare children for the literal and figurative journeys that they will undertake in their lives. Even the concept of transformation, central to the tales like Beauty and the Beast, The Frog Prince, The Ugly Duckling, speaks to the profound human capacity for change. When the ugly duckling discovers he was always a swan, the story tells us something vital about recognizing our true nature beneath the identities thrust upon us by others. In one of the darker tales in the fairy tale canon, The Juniper Tree, collected by Brothers Grimm, a murdered boy is transformed into a bird and then back into a boy again after justice is served. This cycle of death and rebirth, common in many folk tales, speaks to deep psychological and spiritual truths about transformation and renewal that transcend literal interpretation. Consider East of the Sun and West of the Moon, a Norwegian folktale where a young woman must journey to a place that existed beyond ordinary geography, a symbolic realm representing extraordinary measures required for true transformation. Her quest to save her lover, a prince trapped in a bear form, becomes a journey into the deepest realms of self, where ordinary rules no longer apply. These symbolic elements don't merely add depth to the stories, they're the reason these stories have survived for centuries. They speak to something more fundamental in human experience, addressing needs and questions that remain remarkably consistent across vastly different times and cultures. The next time you revisit a beloved fairy tale, or watch or listen to a fairy tale in the Fireside Storyteller, whether reading it to a child or simply recalling it from memory, look deeper. Notice the red of the Red Riding Hood's cloak, a color that symbolizes life, blood, danger, and transition to womanhood. Consider why Sleeping Beauty must prick her finger specifically on a spinning wheel, an object associated with fate, the passage of time, and feminine creativity. Ask yourself why Hansel and Gretel encounter not just a house in the forest, but one made of sweet treats, the ultimate symbol of temptation packaged in false generosity. The symbols are waiting to be discovered, a secret language that has been speaking to us since childhood. They remind us that sometimes the most profound truths come disguised in simple stories, waiting for those with eyes to see and ears to hear the whispers beneath the words. After all, isn't that the true magic of fairy tales? Not that they transport us to different fantasy worlds and princesses and dragons, but that they illuminate the wonder, the danger, and transformative potential of our world. If only we learn to read the signs.